Welcome to Warhammer War Scroll Review. In this kit compare, we'll be comparing two more death units, the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon and Prince Vhordrai.
War Scroll Review. Kit Compare.
Kit Compare reviews two units and decides which is the better option to build. Wait, no, these are the same model. Well, anyway, we'll be comparing the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon with Prince Vhordrai. Which should you field? Their stat wheel is identical, considering everyone will be giving the Vampire Lord the Ancient Shield for a 3-up save. Both models have 14 wounds, and they are fast with a 14-inch flying movement, but it does degrade as it takes wounds. Both their mounts are armed with a breath weapon to let them deal some pretty serious damage at a short range. Prince Vhordrai's mount, Vhordrai, has the ability called Breath of Shyish. On a 3-up, it deals an amount of mortal wounds shown on the damage table, starting at a flat 6 mortal wounds. This is pretty brutal at full health, like a less accurate Thundertusk Snowball at half the range. The Vampire Lord's Zombie Dragon's Breath is more normal range attack with Ren 3 damage d6. The weapon is great, but not nearly as great compared to the Breath of Shyish. Both breath attacks have a special rule to allow them to be a bit more accurate, with the Prince needing to slay models in the previous turn, and the Zombie Dragon having to roll under the target unit's model count. Both models will be sporting 3 melee weapons after the Vampire Lord chooses between the sword and lance. I personally always take the lance, plus it is easier to compare, so let's stick with that. The Vampire Lord's Death Lance has 3 attacks at 1 inch, hitting and wounding on 3s with Ren 1, damage 2. The Prince's Death Lance has 4 attacks with a 2-inch range and Ren -2, otherwise the same. They both have the ability to do 3 damage on the charge. Both zombie dragons have 2 weapons to rip apart the vampire's foes. The 2 dragons have exactly the same weapons stat-wise. They are both powerful, pumping out 6 attacks total even on the brink of death. One weapon deals d6 damage at Ren 2, while the other deals a flat 2 damage at Ren 1. The characters' abilities start off very similarly. They both have the Hunger, Chalice of Blood, and Deathly Invocation. The Hunger heals a wound if the vampire slays models in combat, while the Chalice of Blood heals back d6 wounds once per game. Both abilities give the model some serious regenerative abilities, great for keeping the investment around longer. As stated, both models have the Deathly Invocation rule. This rule heals back 3 summonable units d3 wounds or d3 wounds worth of models. This ability is a staple to death armies and is very important for keeping your undead hordes alive. Both models are also wizards, casting and unbinding 1 spell a turn. The vampires both have access to the lore of vampires, but their unique spells are very different. The Vampire Lord's spell, Blood Boil, deals a mortal wound to a unit. If the mortal wound didn't kill a model in the unit, roll a die, and on a 4-up it is dealt another mortal wound, continuing this until the model is dead or the player fails to roll a 4-up. This is like a not very good Curse of Years, but hell, still better than Arcane Bolt. Probably. Prince Vhordrai has a very interesting spell that gives the caster +1 to hit and wound. The only downside is that it casts on a 7. I know that's the average on 2 dice, but it's not always reliable when you really need it. Good thing Death have plenty of ways to increase spell casting, so maybe look into something there. The Prince's Death Lance is now hitting and wounding on 2s. This will pretty easily do 12 damage on the charge. Also, getting the mount to hit on 3s is extremely beneficial, not to mention their weapons both now wound on 2s. With this spell, the Prince becomes a true combat monster. The models both also sport command abilities, which is the main difference between the 2 models. Prince Vhordrai's command ability allows him to choose a death hero other than himself to pile in an attack or cast a spell in the hero phase. This really is a pretty incredible rule for Death. While they won't always have a model in combat, they can always use this for 1 extra spell. Though the command point expended may not be worth it just for a spell, the option is there. Using this ability to pile in an attack with a Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon, Manfred, or Nagash will be devastating, but now we're talking quite a few points. While the Prince's ability is really great, it just costs so many points on top of your expensive character model to pull off effectively. So I'd have to say the Vampire Lord's command ability is more usable. Dread Knight would allow you to choose a death unit within 15 inches and reroll to hit rolls. This is a handy ability for the Vampire Lord himself, as well as many other units. 40 skeletons with Van Hell's Dance Macabre, and this ability would wipe out just about anything. Both models are leader behemoth units, with the Vampire Lord costing over 400 points and the Prince costing almost 500. These models are pretty expensive. As previously mentioned, the Prince's command ability requires another hero model, and to truly make use of it, it should be a heavy combat character like a Vampire Lord on Dragon or Nagash himself, making this combo cost easily around 900 points. Either of them can lead one of the legions of the Nagash, a Death Grand Alliance, as well as a Soulblight force. These days, the two latter factions kinda take a backseat to the legions of the Nagash. Access to grave sites and Shyish spell lores are reason enough alone to choose one of the legions. In terms of a legion's abilities, the two models will be affected quite differently. They can both take a spell from the Vampire lore, but since Prince Vhordrai is a named character, he won't be able to take command traits or artifacts. This is a real bummer because Death have access to some awesome traits and artifacts. Check out the warscroll review for the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon for a more in-depth look at the character in a Soulblight or Death faction. To shorten the video a bit, I'll just highlight a few of the noteworthy upgrades between all the Death factions. In the legions of Nagash or Sacrament, an item would subtract 1 from wound rolls for nearby enemy models. In a Legion of Blood, the model could reroll save rolls, and multiple factions have items that add +1 to hit and wound rolls, giving Prince Vhordrai's spell a run for its money. In a Soulblight force, the model would be able to make use of one of the best command traits the unit has access to, Mist Form, letting the model fall back and still charge, keeping the unit from ever being locked in combat. In a Legion of Sacrament is where the Vampire Lord finds my favorite artifact. Shroud of Darkness forces the opponent to subtract -1 to hit when shooting the vampire within 8 inches, and -2 to hit when shooting from outside of 8 inches. This item is extremely effective for keeping the Zombie Dragon kicking and ensure they reach combat. Being able to choose artifacts and command traits is a huge bonus to the Vampire Lord, and really increases the amount of combos for this model. While the Prince has a spell to boost himself, a Vampire Lord could be boosted similarly through magic items and traits without wasting a spell. In terms of other units, as stated, Prince Vhordrai basically needs a large combat character to use his command ability on. The Vampire Lord's command ability is better used on large units like skeletons with Van Hells, but the Vampire itself can make use of the ability to great effect. Models like the Mortis Engine and Corpse Cart will be helpful for either model to add to their casting rolls. Nagash grants a very obvious augment to either vampire. The Great Necromancer's command ability has nearby death units rerolling hit and save rolls of 1. Nagash is also able to cast the Prince's spell, making him a complete monster in combat. Use the Prince's command ability on him too, and he should be able to wipe out just about any unit in the game. While speaking of stacking command abilities, a Death player could use the Prince's and a Vampire Lord's command abilities, both on the Lord, to make a Wrecking Ball. Give the model the Vampire Lord on foot's command ability, or trigger the Bloodseeker Palanquin's rule to give +1 attack to each of their weapons. With all that said, let's break down the models point for point. Prince Vhordrai's command ability makes a drastic improvement and basically doubles the unit's effectiveness, while the Vampire Lord's command ability is a bit more versatile. Prince Vhordrai sports a better weapon, while the Vampire Lord is a bit cheaper. Prince Vhordrai has a better unique spell, while the Vampire Lord can take artifacts and traits. The winner in this kit compare, with a 4 out of 5, is the Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. Prince Vhordrai receives a 3 out of 5, but the biggest things holding the Prince back is his price and inability to take artifacts and command traits. Not only is he more expensive than the generic Vampire Lord, he requires another expensive character to make use of his ability. The two models actually pair well together, but rating them by themselves, the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon pulls ahead. Be sure to check out the warscroll review for the Vampire Lord and Zombie Dragon to hear more about this great model. Which of these warscrolls do you prefer? What warscrolls would you like to see compared or reviewed? Leave your thoughts, answers, and suggestions in the comments below, and thanks for watching.